Hello, I'm Sam from Jessup Says. The focus of my channel is to share and educate on how to buy less, buy better. It's not necessarily about buying less things, it's about buying something that fits its purpose perfectly and serves you for as long as possible. I often assess a brand based on its history, its heritage, where they make their products, and crucially in some cases who the brand is owned by. It is these criteria that I use in part of my overall assessment of if a brand or a product is actually worth investing in. And for the most part, rightly so. But what if a brand has had many owners, all who wanted different things? It got me thinking, and specifically it got me thinking about R.M. Williams, the iconic Australian company, known for their iconic Craftsman Chelsea boot, which is still proudly made here in Australia. But we all know R.M. Williams, their quality is rubbish right now, right? I mean, they were owned by the infamous LVMH, Moet, Hennessy, Louis Vuitton, who we all agree in the boot community made their products worse and more expensive, right? Well, today I wanted to talk about it. Does it really matter who owns R.M. Williams? Who owns them before? Who owns them now? And maybe, just maybe, we can decide if it really matters and if the nostalgia of those 90s R.M. Williams that last a lifetime was just nostalgia, or if R.M. Williams has always been just R.M. Williams and what changed was us. Big questions, so let's get into it. R.M. Williams is a truly iconic Australian brand, and it was all started by a man named, you guessed it, R.M. Williams, who learned his leatherworking skills from a stockman known as Dollar Mick. Together, Dollar Mick and R.M. Williams developed a unique design for boots, a variation of the classic Chelsea boot made from a single piece of leather. In 1932, R.M. Williams found himself in need of money, so he did what any resourceful person would do and started selling to Sir Sidney Kidman, a wealthy pastoralist. With the funds he earned from those initial sales, Williams set up a small factory, and it was at this time that the brand was, I suppose, the most Australian it has ever been, or it would ever be. You could say that it was in its prime, delivering exceptional quality products with a touch of what I'm told is described here in Australia as bush magic. This magic lasted until 1988, when he sold the business to Bennett and Fisher, which was a well-established stock and station agent. When Bennett and Fisher took over, there was a certain level of expectation for the brand's quality to continue. However, as time set on, the financial troubles set in, and sadly the quality of the products seemed to suffer during this time. The once thriving brand struggled to maintain its standards, leaving some fans yearning for the good old days under the ownership of R.M. Williams. The business then went into receivership in 1993, and that's when Ken Cowley, a longtime friend of R.M. Williams, stepped in and joined forces with the Australian business mogul Kerry Stokes, and they took over control of the R.M. Williams brand. They led the brand for a solid decade, with Cowley eventually assuming full ownership in 2003. During their tenure, there was a concerted effort to restore the reputation of the R.M. Williams brand. Quality improvements were made, and the craftsmanship began to regain its former glory. It was a time of revival where the brand started to regain its stride and remind everyone why they fell in love with R.M. Williams in the first place. This is probably the golden age if the R.M. Williams ownership was the sort of silver age. Fast forward to 2013, and the Cowley family decided it was time for a new chapter. They announced their intention to sell R.M. Williams, attracting a lot of potential buyers, but ultimately LVMH was decided that they wanted to put their head in the ring through their L Capital Asia, which became L Carterton, and they acquired a 49.9% stake in R.M. Williams. They liked what they saw, and over that year they actually increased their ownership to 82% by 2014, and then full ownership by 2016. Then in 2019 we heard rumors start circling about the potential sale of the company, with LVMH seeking a jaw-dropping $400 to $500 million investment to buy the company. At that point, Al Carterton, or LVMH, owned 82%, IFM Investors held 13%, and believe it or not, Hugh Jackman, the actor, owned 5% in the company. It's sort of this time period, that LVMH ownership, that most of us consider the period where the quality of their leather and the construction declined the most, and also when the price of the boots seemed to increase the most rapidly in comparison. Sadly, it's basically impossible to get Google to comply to any normal Google search function these days, and other browsers don't seem to be any smarter, so finding any reference or relevant information on what the price has been of an R.M. Williams over time, which you'd think someone would have tracked, is completely impossible to find. So I don't have the exact lineup of the price of the boot compared to the quality, but I would love to have that information if someone has it. Anyway, I tend to agree with the analysis that over that time, the LVMH ownership, that it seems pretty obvious to me that that was when the decline of the company happened after the Cowley golden era. They are, after all, an investment firm, and their goal should and would be to extract as much value as they can out of the company. They want to say that these things are improvements to the comfort of their product. But ultimately, I tend to believe that these move to more composite or man-made materials are most strongly linked to a want to reduce the amount of leather in the boot construction, because leather is quite an expensive material. I can see a company looking at alternatives to their leather product and looking for something that was, quote unquote, better during this time where they're managed by an investment firm who are trying to optimize things and make things as good, quote unquote, good as possible. I can speak from my personal experience that I remember a pair of R.M. Williams being around about $300 when I was growing up. Then they were about $400 in the 2010s, and then I definitely remember around the time when they were looking to sell that they went up to that almost $700 that they are now, and I remember that caused quite a stir online. Finally, in October 2020, Andrew Forrest Tattarang investment company swooped in and acquired R.M. Williams for $190 million, quite a lot shy of that $400 to $500 million that they said that they were looking for. And just like that, the iconic Australian brand had found new ownership and an Australian ownership once more. And at the time in 2020, Andrew Forrest released statements and a lot of information about how he wanted to bring things back to Australia and focus on Australian quality and Australian production. It's been 3 years since that point, so we do have some time, and we can use that time to analyze and see what the future has been like based on what's actually happening now with the brand. Now, I know that Andrews has been touted as sort of the savior of the brand, and while he is Australian, he is ultimately an investor, and he is likely to want to primarily extract profit from the company, and that is his right to do so, and that's what all companies should strive to achieve. When it comes to what we can actually expect when it comes to the R.M. Williams boots, it is most likely that he will continue with the same balance of quality and materials that LVMH have used for the last 10 years or so. It's very unlikely they're going to change what they consider to be the sort of winning formula. Anytime you introduce change for any reason, you add a lot of complexity and time to the production schedule, and therefore you add cost. And to do something like that, to change from a man-made material, let's say for example, back to the leather, would require, spinning up new departments, spinning down current departments, sourcing new materials, ramping up. It's not a simple thing to do. I can't imagine that they would change from the more composite materials back to the traditional leather materials for their mainstream option. I know that they do offer the signature range, which is completely leather, so there are those options out there, but I know that signature boot is around $1,000. And I think that is probably the thing that I can say what we can expect from R.M. Williams going forward. My gut says that $649 that the Comfort Craftsman currently is probably very unlikely to be the price for much longer. Let me explain why I think that. Now, thinking back to LVMH's ownership, I would imagine that if the brand was wildly profitable, that they probably would have kept it. But if you look at what they were doing from 2016 to 2019, what they tried to do is move a lot of their manufacturing away from Australia, and this was probably a move to look for more profit margin. Anyone who knows R.M. knows that the most expensive part of their business was the local manufacturing, and this is probably the most crucial part or critical part of their business as well. To move the R.M. boot manufacturing overseas would probably kill their company from a reputation standpoint. Under LVMH, they probably thought about this. Thankfully, I can't see any reference to any other actual made outside of Australian footwear on the R.M. Williams website at this time, which is pretty amazing and outstanding to see. It aligns with what Andrew has said, that he intends to focus on Australian manufacturing, and the other options on their website seem to align with this, as there is a much greater selection of made in Australia, both boots and clothing. It's a very different strategy and a very different feel on the website from what LVMH was doing. I'm genuinely really hanging out to try some of the made in Australian clothing that R.M. Williams are offering, and I'll definitely be posting reviews on that when I get my hands on it. Though I am really hanging out for a made in Australia rugby jersey, and if R.M. Williams are sort of back in this made in Australia game, then hopefully that is some sort of hope there. And if this is his strategy, bringing things back to Australia, then the honest truth of that strategy is that the price of things is going to go up to support the cost of doing business here in Australia. Basically, making things locally is actually only going to get more and more difficult and more expensive. So in order to do that, he's going to need to charge, or the brand is going to need to charge more for the goods that they are making. I'm not going to try and tell you that a pair of R.M. Williams boots at over 700 Australian dollars is a good deal or even good value. We probably know that they aren't when you consider the options that are out there, but there is a genuine cost to trying to save Australian manufacturing, a real tangible cost. And we as consumers need to continue to decide if it's worth paying that increased cost or if we are happy to just let there not be any Australian manufacturing anymore. Now, that's not at all the conclusion that I had in mind when I first set out to write this video, and I love that it isn't. I came to the conclusion that for me, in my decision-making hierarchy, I'm willing to pay a bit extra, quite a lot extra in some cases, to support local production. Because the honest truth is, without Aaron Williams, there would really be no one left, and that's incredibly sad. Even as a Kiwi, the apparent arch nemesis of the Australian, I want Aaron Williams to survive, and better yet, I want them to thrive, because then Australian manufacturing will survive and thrive. As for what we can expect going forward across the various owners, the quality of RM products has experienced its fair share of ups and downs. It's a journey that reflects the ebbs and flow of the fashion industry, as with each owner leaving their mark on the brand's legacy and also the brand's quality. But ultimately, what truly matters is the dedication to the craftsmanship and the ability to develop products that stand the test of time. After all, when you slip on a pair of Aaron Williams boots, it's not just a fashion statement, it's a connection to a rich heritage and a symbol of enduring quality, and most importantly, supporting the last bastion of Australian-made footwear. And to me, that's quite special. Thanks very much for watching. Links are in the description as always, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Cheers.